wild game dinner last night. About 300, all former hockey players. It was a lot.
They
Tom,
still been at the Danish Canadian Club, Tom?
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Tom,
usually in
explain that
February,
a
but
little
they
bit.
haven't had it for a few years, so they have.
Tom, explain that a little bit because the listeners, especially our American friends, it's the Old Timers Club in Calgary. It's been around a long time, and it's an old boys thing. But go ahead, give it just let them know about it.
Well, it started. It started. Oh, I don't know, 50 years ago or something. And the whole point of it was guys made no money playing hockey, right? They encouraged you to quit school in grade 10. They wanted you to go to high school. So guys, when they're finished, a lot of them were really down and out. So they started this to help. They needed, a little bit of help, and it's gone on, and and all the guys that are there, they played. There was, like Polonich and Rich Preston and guys like that. And Al Coates was one of the speakers. But they also raise money and give scholarships to Mount Royal and St. Give scholarships to some of the players. They no longer do it to U of C because their coach just disses them. He's never showed up. He just took some money, and all that. So they said, well, if you can't even come to the dinner, we're not giving you a scholarship. But anyways, it's always a lot of fun. You see a lot of people you haven't seen for a long time, and guys get up there and tell jokes, and they raise money. I have a auction and all kinds of stuff to raise money for different things. So it's a good deal.
Tom, who would I talk to? Because I used to go when I was coaching, obviously, but I should get on their email list so I'm in the loop for next year.
Harvey Poon or Kenny Hobday are on the executive.
Okay.
Remind me, and I can get them to get a hold of you.
Yeah, maybe just fire me one of their emails and I'll just touch base with them.
Okay, I wanted to get going here, and I want to just get Kim to say hello, and I've got some question for her. Kim, I'm sure you know Thomas know each other, but Kim, are you on?
I'm here, Wally.
Good. Kim, I talked to Troy Ryan, coach of the national women's team, and I'm working more with Girls Hockey Calgary U13 level and lower, and I'm looking for female highlight hockey clips of tactical skating with a puck and without it. So if you have anything and can send it my way, I'm trying to share that with coaches in Calgary and players who might benefit from it. So please do that if you can. And I'm going to introduce Thomas to everybody. Now, I think most of the Sharks know Thomas, and hopefully our American friends can get on. Sammy's joined, Jordan's joined, Mike Benelli. We're all here now, and for Tim and Michael, Thomas goes a long way back with all of us here because he coached with me when he came to Calgary from the Czech Republic at the Olympic Oval, and then he coached the Oval team itself and developed a close relationship with Haley, and he's just gone on with hockey work literally all over the world. He's worked with NHL teams in skill areas. He's an exceptional coach, and I found the best coach I've ever worked with in terms of sharing ideas on the fly during practices, being able to, let's try this. And it's not often as a coach you're comfortable enough to take in information when you've got a written plan and adapt it. But for Thomas and myself, that was sort of a automatic thing, and I have to thank him for that because most of what I've taken forward, which would be new for Canadian coaches, comes from Thomas, and he's come full circle. He's in the Czech Republic now, acting as a development coach for the Toronto Maple Leafs of their drafted European players. He's coached the Czech national female team and just made an incredible difference in the game. Close friend of Daryl Belfry, who also works with Toronto. And I'm going to just let Thomas know his job, and I'm sure everyone on board is going to have questions for him. So Thomas, welcome to the group. It's
Again,
all yours, buddy.
Thank you, Wally, and thank you for the wonderful introduction. And of course, also official congratulations one more time to Wally and the naming of the arena after him, very well deserved. And Wally is a long time mentor of mine, and I call him my Canadian dad. We certainly have shared a lot of time together and a lot of memories now. So I'm just gonna go a little bit explain what my job is and what I do, and then I just leave it for questions instead of me, going on for a long time. So as a development coach for the Toronto Maple Leafs, my job is to overlook the drafted players who are still playing in Europe and who in the future, hopefully one day will play for the Maple Leafs. So what the job entails is to overlook their development and overlook their everyday life, basically, whether it's in Finland, Sweden, Germany, Switzerland, wherever it is, to look at their games, their practices, their strength conditioning training, their nutrition, and make sure that what they do is as close as possible to what it will be expected from them when they come overseas and play either for the Marlies, which is the farm team, or the Maple Leafs. The job itself is very different than what I've ever done in my life because I'm really not in charge. I'm responsible, but I'm not in charge. That means the coaches in Europe are in charge who work with those players. So they give them the tactics, they give them the skills. Strength coaches and other people influence those players. And of course, with our organization, I'm also not in charge because there's head coaches with the Marlies, with the Leafs. There is Haley, who is the assistant general manager. There's Daryl, there's Danielle, who is in charge of the development program. So I guess the biggest challenge for me was like, what is my role and how can I most contribute? So realizing early on, I am not a head coach here, I'm not an assistant coach, I'm not in charge. So I'm not the maker, I'm not the doer, I'm not the creator, I'm not the guy who demands. So the best I can do is influence. So influence the Maple Leafs, influence the Marlies, influence our coaching staffs, just, to understand there's about 6 coaches with the Maple Leafs, there's 6 coaches with the Toronto Marlies, and there's about 11 of us in the development program. So you're looking at about 25 excellent hockey minds that I'm surrounded with every single day. So finding my role would be probably finding the most impact I can make was probably and is every day the biggest challenge. When I go over to the countries that our players are in, the head coaches have their tactics, their principles, their philosophies, and also the stress and fear of everyday life as a head coach, winning and losing. So the development of our player is not at their foremost priority. Same with the assistant coaches, same with the organization. It's a business. All of our players are playing basically in professional leagues, so it's a business. So once I understood and once every day I put myself into that role, I am only an influencer. I need to coach the players, our Maple Leaf players, through the coaches, through the organizations that they play for. So it is very important for me what kind of relationship I have with the head coach, assistant coach, general manager. The more people I know, the better it is for the player, the better it is for our organization. Now, one of the biggest jobs that I've spent the last 5-6 months is I have to be intimately in the know what kind of tactics, philosophies, individual skills are required from our players. So what is the newest in the NHL? What is the newest with the Toronto Maple Leafs, with the Toronto Marlies? What principles are we teaching? What do we expect skating-wise, shooting-wise, thinking-wise, read and react? So I'm learning every single day. I'm surrounded by people and I'm just learning, because I have to take the player who is now in Europe, playing under different system, different circumstances, and prepare him as much as possible for what is going on in North America. So when he comes over, the transition is as smooth as possible. And it's never going to be perfect because nothing will prepare you for the NHL or AHL as playing in the league. So constantly having the context of what he's doing on the ice right now, is it transferable? Is the skill or his thinking transferable to the NHL? He might be successful in Sweden or Finland or Germany, shooting, scoring, getting in the open, or even defensively closing, getting stops, angling. He might be successful, but is he gonna be successful at the next level? So that's my job. So I have to constantly watch every single day NHL clips, Toronto Maple Leafs clips, always listen to the coaches, how they teach it. Is this, and then compare it to what the player is doing, again, in Finland, Sweden, wherever he is. And then put it into a context that is acceptable for the coaching staff, and pick my time when they are the least busy and influence them through conversations, through videos, through my visits. Because the last thing I want to do is go to Sweden or Finland or wherever, Switzerland, and pretend like I know it all and this is how the player has to play. We want to have a long-term relationship with all the clubs, and we want them to be looking forward to work with the Maple Leafs. And I represent the Maple Leafs. So for me, the biggest learning is like, it's the least selfish job I've ever done. It's never about me. Like, it's not what I want. It's not what I think is right. First of all, it's the Toronto Maple Leafs, then it's the player. But also so important who the player is playing for, which is the organization, whoever it might be. And I have to respect, accept, where are they playing, under what circumstances, what their philosophies are, even though I disagree with them. So I had to learn to be, I don't want to say diplomatic because it's not true. I just have to pick my spots and influence and be very, very, very patient. And wait for my spot and wait how I can influence the most. So it's a lonely job too, because I'm sitting at home, I'm not on the ice, and I'm not coaching a team. So it's a big letdown from being a head coach of the national team and being in the spotlight all the time under pressure, and then to being at home and hours of video communicating with, whether it's the European teams or whether it's the Maple Leafs and the Marlies. So I've learned to communicate a lot through, WhatsApp and messages and Zoom calls and sending videos, sharing. And then when I go to let's say Finland, I go there for a couple of weeks and I spend 5 days with one player and they allow me to go on the ice. I want to make sure I run the ice time so that it doesn't interfere with the tactics and philosophies of the team, but it strictly works on the individual skill and the individual tactic of the player that we need for him to take those few steps so that when he comes over to North America next year or in 2 years, so that he is ready. And usually those ice times would be so that I can leave him with a couple of practice sessions that he can do on his own or with his assistant coaches. So very challenging in communication. I'm learning a lot about how to communicate, how not to be important, and always asking myself the question every day, like in my morning meditation, in my morning preparation, it's like, how can I contribute today? What can I do to help the Maple Leafs? What can I help to do to help the Marlies? What can I do to help the player? So that all benefit, because there is a benefit for the European hockey teams if they get to know how the Maple Leafs play in the offensive zone and back check on exits, on entries, defensive sticks and all that stuff. There's a huge benefit, and a lot of them understand that the connection with the NHL teams is an advantage for them and for the coaches. Some of them, of course, have their own ideas. That's normal. And so about every 2 months, I go for about a couple of weeks either to European teams or I go back to Toronto, where I support the development staff. We have a lot of young coaches, excellent coaches, skills coaches, skating coaches that are absolutely fantastic. And I get to support them with my ideas, with my background. And so I was thinking about it, Wally, today, you know, how you coached through me and how maybe Father Bauer coached through you, and how those ideas of Tarasov and Bukac and all these famous coaches are passed on through generations, and Dave King and all these people, and how we are just, you know, passing on those experiences. And as modern and as advanced as hockey has gotten, some of the principles of offensive support and creative offensive thinking and 5 players working together that has been taught by Tarasov in the 60s is still there and still not mastered. And I think hockey has become tremendously individual. It's all about that one single player. We have individual plans, individual development plans, but it's still a team game, and sometimes I think it gets lost. And you see it in the games too, how the players play together and think together sometimes gets lost. The pass, the art of passing, the art of receiving, the art of deception sometimes gets lost because of so much individual skill development. Those are some of the challenges that I see and that get overlooked because of the new trend. But it's still a team game, and sometimes I'm missing it. I was thinking about you, Wally, and Tim too, that, you know, when just being in a development camp, and this is not, I'm not even talking about the Leafs, but at the NHL level, when I watch other teams as well, how much timing has gotten lost, arriving at the right time for the pass or for the shot, how we overskate the routes, how we are too fast, usually too early. We are too early. We are not leaving the space in front of us. We have one speed instead of varying the speed. And I'm not talking about so much. Players are pretty good at varying speed with the puck. They learn that that's a huge advantage for them. They can speed up, they can slow down, they can be really shifty. Weight shift is something we, you know, discuss every single day. And you can manipulate with the defenseman or maybe 2 defensive players. But I'm talking about the players away from the puck, and that has gotten lost. And we need to work on that. It's something that I don't see many coaches teaching and coaching. And the gratitude that I have that I was able, Wally, and Tim and Dave King, and again, I can name those coaches that were teaching the true fundamentals of a team game, not so much even just hockey, but soccer, any kind of a basketball, any kind of game that's still very valid today, maybe more than ever. And that's sort of the, you know, entry. That's my job, my everyday challenge. the one thing I cannot speak about is directly what players I'm working with, their names and their weaknesses. I can speak in general terms, but I'm open to any questions. Wally, you're on mute.
I've written down a number of questions, and I just wanted to, in the light of what you said about timing is lost. I totally agree with you. We're on the same page, and even at the highest level, it's not as good as the game is not as good as it could be. It's great, but the disconnect between interchanging positions and timing in all situations could be much better. And I wanted to, before we went on to other questions, I wanted to mention a name of Johanni Walston, who's one of those specialists from Finland who has the best sequence of pass timing drills that I've ever seen in my life, that I've tried to share with coaches. And in fact, working with girls hockey Calgary today at the U13 level and the U18 level, I'm trying to just share that information with coaches. Would you try this? Because, there's a little box support drill Hockey Canada has about how do you get open, where do you go? And the frustration is getting coaches to experiment with things and practice, and that depends on the relationship you have with them. And before we go on, I want to mention and thank you today. After my heart attack and recovering, you brought me down to Florida to recover with you and walk on the beach, but watch you do your skills work with players. And you were mentoring. The players loved what you did. You let the game teach through the game-like drill. And to this day, I know Tomas, Jordan, they use your we call it the Tomas continuous 2-on-2 drill. It's a staple for anybody I've worked with. And it doesn't matter what level they're at, when they're capable of passing, they're learning timing and decision making. That comes from you. But the time in Florida, I saw as a coach, you were mentoring because you sort of had a trustful relationship with Jacques Martin. And eventually, I think that drill became the first part of a lot of NHL warm-ups after you had showed them that. So I wonder if you could talk about how that experience helped you prepare for what you're doing today, and not only with them, but Pittsburgh and other teams you work with.
Well, as I said, Wally, learning not to be the guy in the room, as all of us, I do have a big ego and sort of wanted to be important, and I'm learning until today that there's different ways how to influence and how to mentor and how to teach without people knowing that you are teaching. And I think my greatest teacher was my father. And my dad was a journalist. He was one of the greatest journalists Czech Republic had, sport journalist. And he never spoke. He always listened. He asked the right questions and he listened. So I have inherited that. I always, whether it was with you or with Dave King or with any famous coaches, I always came and I was asking questions. Tom Rennie, and I was never the guy who talks. And that's still my job today. When I go to Toronto, I probably talk 10%, then 90% I'm listening, and I'm surrounded by the greats of. We have some great people in that organization, including women like Danielle Goyette and Haley and Daryl Belfry and our head coach with the Leafs, and those are fantastic people. So I want to know what they think, how they see the game. And what I'm learning also is really teamwork, coaches teamwork. So it's 10 of us. And instead of me telling my players the skating drills that he needs to do, I ask our skating coaches to design those skating drills and send them to me. So I'm trying to use the whole department. Can you please help me with this? What do you think about his reception? Do you know some drills that are really good for weight shift reception, or for escaping with the puck, or for shooting, or with Daryl automatically, because Daryl is a fountain of amazing ideas and drills. And so, do you have experience with this? And yes, I do. Do you have some videos on it? So really, I am sort of more of a messenger. I'm not really the guy, and I'm allowing others to work through me, and I'm just bringing the message. And I pray every day that the message comes clean, and that there is as little ego as possible in it, and that the best thing for the player. Another thing, I'm 54 years old, and I'm like, I just don't know. Like, I don't know what is the best thing for the player. So the question is every day, like, what is the best thing for him today? Maybe he needs to struggle for 2 weeks or 3 weeks and doesn't score a goal. We all panic and it's like, okay, we got to do something. He's not scoring. What are we going to do? Let's talk to the coach. Why is he not playing? And I'm saying, well, maybe that's what he needs. Maybe that is the best thing for him, to struggle and to figure it out, and come on the other side a different man, more mature man or more mature woman, whether if it's a female team that we work with. So I guess as I get older, I realize how teamwork is extremely important, and that I'm not the only guy in the room that knows, and that a lot of times maybe it's not that they know more, but the view of the problem is different. So I look at it from here, they look at it from the left side, this guy looks at it from the right side. And I don't want to mention Daryl again, but like, Daryl never agrees with you what you say. He always has a different angle, and sometimes it drives me nuts. It's like fuck, like, I know, but he always comes with something else. He's like, have you looked at it this way? And I'm like, yeah, no, I didn't. But he's right. So that, I guess, is, to a long answer to your question, is to let the truth and that what will help the player come through me and not necessarily from me. Whether it is from other people that I'm surrounded with, or if it's from a higher source. You are on mute, Wally.
Okay, everybody else here, they're a shark like yourself, Thomas. And I don't believe you've met Dave Barrett before, but I want to introduce Dave. He's talked about the Socratic method of learning, and when he was joining us quite regularly, it gets down to listening, because the Socratic method of learning is related to asking questions, not giving answers. So, Dave, would you introduce yourself in the light of Thomas's talk and knowing our group? Go ahead, David, and then we'll get on with questions. So everybody that has them, be ready to throw them at Thomas. Okay, David?
I don't want to take up any time. This is great. So I'm here to listen today, not talk. So, Thomas, I'm an ex-hockey player. I had the fortune of playing for a guy who played in Europe, so I learned a lot about timing when I was in college, but did a little coaching myself, and don't coach now, but I'm very interested in still listening to this group of individuals share their thoughts and wisdom. So I'm here to listen today. Thanks, Thomas.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay. Anybody else? Tim Bothwell.
Yeah, Thomas, good to see you. I had jotted down, kind of what you to ask you what you might think, speaking generally about the players you are working with. Like, are there 2 or 3 or 5 areas that you're finding that they're all sort of lacking or need work on? You mentioned the timing thing. Are there one or two other areas that you just seem to keep bumping into with a lot of the players?
It's probably the being on one foot or the other, being weight shifted, being constantly on a left or right foot, so that I can be constantly moving and never standing still. So passing and moving my feet, shooting and moving my feet, nothing new, but it's a issue with young players who we get. This is not just Maple Leafs, this was Portland before. When they are successful at the lower levels, they usually have exceptional skill and have a little bit more time, and they are able to settle their feet into the tripod. And at the high level, if you stop skating and everybody knows you're gonna pass or you're gonna shoot, it's gonna be too late. You're gonna lose the puck. It's gonna be you're not gonna be successful. So moving on reception, moving with the puck and passing without anybody knowing that you're gonna pass, or you can pass from the left or right foot. And the same goes for, of course, for shooting even more. That would be, to me, one of the biggest things that, and even players who you would say they are great skaters and great movers, you realize when they get the puck, they stop their feet, or they stop for a little bit. Same when they shoot. And that is something that they have to definitely work on. They might be successful at the AHL level or European level, but not at the NHL level. You have to be able to move left and pass right, and move right and pass left, and you have to be crossovering your feet. That's another area where the great skaters of the, McDavids, McKinnons, and almost anybody now, nobody's skating forward anymore, gliding. You see that there is linear crossovers, as Daryl calls it. And you have to be able to do it on your back check, on closing, on angling, and with the puck as well. So if you don't know how to do linear crossover, and if you are just a straightforward glider, you're not going to be able to play in the National Hockey League. In terms of tactics, definitely there is a lack of deception. True deception. That means being able to sell, I am going this way and then I'm going the other way. Truly sell, I'm passing this way and I'm passing the other way. Or on shooting even more, whether it's my feet are going this way and I'm shooting the other way. True deception is hard to come by. I know that most organizations work on that. And it is the difference maker today, because you have no time, no space. And again, this is nothing new. Deception has been always extremely important. But again, I find when we do work on skills, unless it is accompanied by deception, it's not going to be very effective, because everybody skates so well. Everybody learns how to play defensively extremely well. Today, you have most defensemen skating forwards. Have great sticks, great angling skills, great closing skills, great sealing off skills. If you don't have deception attached to your individual skills, you are not going to be exceptional player. You're going to have tough time. And even the best of the best are working on their deception.
That's a really great answer. Before we go to
the other thing is, go ahead, Tim. I'm sorry.
Yeah, before we go to Tom, and just like follow up. So those are all great, like 5 or 6 areas really that, you could sit with a player, watch video, and pretty easy to say, see this, no deception, or see this, you're straight ahead. We need those linear crossovers. So do you get much time to do like watch individual video with the players? Is that a big chunk of your?
I watch every single game, every single shift of my players that I'm responsible for. And the feedback is sometimes extensive. Sometimes it is, I have to, again, context. So all the players that I'm looking after are getting a lot of video feedback from their coaches. And the coaches are very kind and they usually send me that. So I see what they get from their coaches. So no sense of overloading the player. So again, I have to pick my spot and maybe address the things that they are not addressing. But most likely, and this is Dave King told me, catch them when they are doing something right. So I'm trying to catch them when they are trying to do something, like when they are cutting into the middle. We want our players to play in the middle of the ice. That's no secret. I don't think I'm saying anything that anybody's not trying to do. You don't want to stay on the wall or stay on the outside lanes. So whenever we catch our players attacking the middle of the ice, whether it's in the defensive zone, neutral zone, offensive zone, that's very good. We want that. We want to play there. So again, sometimes I send them one clip, little tiny clip. And sometimes I put a writing on the clip and it's a question mark. Sometimes I just say, hey, this is it. Sometimes I say, hey, is there another option here? I would like my players, not our players to think for themselves. So that's another thing I really thought about a lot last few months is like, as coaches, a lot of times we tell the players what, and also we tell them how. And I think what I would like to do more is tell them what, but not how, for them to figure out the how. So yes, what, you need to get to the middle of the ice. How are you going to get there? Show me. There's 5, 6 different ways you can get there. You can protect your puck on the backhand. You just no stick handle, you skate, you cross over there, you put it on your forehand, you do whatever it is. But I think by telling the players constantly how, we take away the creativity and we take away that the skill, that they own the skill. I want him to own the skill. And if I tell him this is how you do it, and he does it, then it's Pacina's skill and not his skill. And owning the skill, you can only own it when you figure it out yourself, by yourself. So by telling them what I need them to do and then figuring out how, I hope that they will own the skill. And when they own it, they will do it more under pressure.
Great. Tom?
Yeah, Thomas, I got really interesting year here. I'm coaching with my son and Cassie Campbell, and we're coaching a under 13 girls team, and they play in a boys league. So it's kind of neat, and we practiced the other day, and they put these smart skate sensors on their skates, and what it does, it measures the stride, where the pressure points are, how much of the time they're going, really fast or slow and all this sort of thing. And I haven't seen the data yet, but what I did is I took about a 20-minute video of the hour just to kind of correlate what they were doing at, in different times on the practice. And, it's interesting thing. And it's interesting, like Cassie's never coached before. So she's, I give her, the other day I gave her the first 30 minutes of practice and she did some really good stuff, and I'd make a few suggestions. And, so it's interesting between her and Jim, and the kids are really receptive. But I want to tell you about that skate sensor.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Say hi to Cassie from me, please.
I will, for sure. I remember when you were coaching the Oval and our midget team, when I was coaching Jim, we played you guys 3 times, I think the last year that he played. We had pretty good games.
Yeah, Cassie Campbell, Danielle Goet, Haley Wickenheiser, pretty good line.
Yeah.
Dave Barrett.
Thomas, I was at a University of Maine Quinnipiac game on the weekend. I hadn't been to an NCAA game in a long time. And what struck me was how everything was done at top speed. And what I also noticed, though, being a slow player that I was, is nobody really hangs onto the puck for a long time to allow kind of lanes to develop, to allow pass receivers to get more open. And I'm wondering if we're trying to teach everything at pace now. Has it somehow inhibited the ability for players to learn how to have poise and hang on for an extra half count to allow plays to develop?
Great question.
Absolutely beautiful question. Absolutely agree. And I can just say that one of the philosophies that I would have and we would have is that you would want to be varying your speed and not have just one fast speed, but that you would be able to speed up and get to the fastest speed as quick as you can with 2-3 strides, but be able to delay it and to invite actually pressure to you, not just player, but at the best you want to have 2 players, sometimes 3 players on you, and just like you say, to develop open lanes for other players, which in itself is an art. You need amazing amount of skill, but patience and also fortitude, mental fortitude and bravery to be able to invite that much pressure onto you. And the patience away from the puck and the timing away from the puck is what I was talking about in the beginning, which is so difficult, where people overskate their routes and they are too fast and they don't hold onto the good ice, that whether it's a weak side lane, a lot of the open ice is on the weak side, dot line, whether it's up high on the blue line, so you can skate onto the puck and not getting it too low in front of the net. So yes, I think yes, absolutely, everything is at a high speed, but the players, that's the other side of the coin, is losing that interchangeability and variability of speed, and the great players do that. I think Goodrow with the Flames was fantastic at it. I was studying some entries of the Calgary Flames of last year, and he was on most of the good entries, and he was always like that guy who speeds up but then delays, draw people to him, and then distributes. So, he plays in Columbus now, but he was a perfect example of how you can do that.
I think Patrick Kane a lot too.
Oh yeah, yeah. He might be the best in the world. Yes, in that, absolutely. And student of Daryl, not to forget Daryl. Yes, Gary Bracco, you are on mute still.
Yeah. How you doing, Thomas? Been a long time.
Long time, Kerry. I remember 25 years ago, I met you first time and you were winning every single game with the AAA midgets. You guys, I think, won the Air Canada Cup. And I remember, what were you working on with them? And I was so curious, and you said a lot of 2-on-1s. We were working on 2-on-1s. Remember that like today, that conversation, never will forget it.
Well, I certainly enjoyed over the years watching you grow through the routes, and it's awesome to see what you're doing and enjoying and your role and all that sort of stuff. I had a question about the European game in reference to the ages of the kids in the growth of their development. What have you seen that they do differently in Europe? And what I'm talking specifically about is, I think in Canada here, we have too many younger kids, like 15, 16, 17-year-olds. We're hindering their development because they're playing against stronger 19, 20-year-olds.
Yeah.
Is the model in a lot of the European world there, do they allow the kids to stay in their age brackets longer, or do they rush them up like what we're really doing here far too much? And how much of an effect does it have on their actual overall development of that skill at that time?
Yeah. So again, absolutely fantastic question, and you speak the truth. I can speak about Czech Republic, and I can speak a little bit about Sweden and Finland because I live there and I go there quite a bit. So other countries I don't want to speak about, I don't know much about. But Czech Republic, we do the same thing as in Canada. So if you are any good, you move up, you play with 2 years, 3 years older kids. Parents are pushing, he needs to play with the older kids. And so what happens is not only that the player is not developing elite skills, because from a first line player, suddenly you play on the third line. And from playing power play, penalty kill, and extensive ice time, you just play average ice time 15 minutes. But the lack of leadership, we don't have any leadership in Czech Republic. And I believe what you said is probably because of that. Those great kids, those skilled kids, don't spend any time on a team that they can actually lead, that they are actually relied upon, that they have to put the team on their back. So not only the skill and the tactical and the social aspect, but definitely I feel leadership is lacking because of that. Now, Sweden, I know one thing. I had the honor to work with Henrik Zetterberg for just a week once in Detroit. And he was telling his story, and he said, when I was 16, 17, I wasn't very good. I was just an average midget player. And I've never thought I will, be making money with hockey. But, they still let me play. I was playing on the, top team, the club team. I was never invited to the national teams, never ever any provincial teams, nothing. But, I was then 17, and one summer I got stronger and a little bit faster, and suddenly I became way better player, and I got invited to national team when I was 18. So that would never happen in Czech Republic, and I think even in Canada you would have tough time, and by 17, 18, 16 you would not be a very good player invited to those camps. It would be hard for that player to make it. So I know that in Sweden and in Finland, they are very, very, very careful how those players develop and have a lot of patience because they have low numbers, just like the Czechs. So they cannot afford to waste the talent. And, I don't want to be speaking. I think in Finland you have to have exceptions. And I think to play with older players, and there is only I know when I was working for the Czech Federation, they were saying that there was 2 or 1 exception a year that would be granted by the federation. It has to be granted by the federation that you can play 1 year up. And not even the teams don't even ask for it. In Czech Republic, we have 55 exceptions every year. Everybody wants to go up. And there was 1 or 2 are asking the federation. So that shows me that the teams and organizations are mature enough that they know that playing at your level, unless you're Sidney Crosby or somebody, is probably the best thing for long-term development.
So it's kind of similar. So what we're seeing here then, eh?
Yeah, in our country, yes. In our country, there's a huge push. Everybody's impatient and everybody wants to play up, up, up. And like I said, no time to develop those skills.
I think it's a good point, Thomas. You mentioned the loss of leadership skills. My time years ago in the Western League and in all the discussion we have, the discussion generally centers on the tactical side. Like if you're a 16-year-old trying to figure out, should I play in the Western League and play 8 minutes a game, or should I stay in midget AAA and play 20, 22 minutes a game? It often only centers on the tactical part. And as you mentioned, again, there's maybe a little bit of a loss of offensive confidence or skill development. It's hard to find, but I don't think I've ever heard anybody mention the loss of the development of leadership skills. But it is pretty significant, pretty huge.
I also believe that, for example, scoring is a habit. It's a habit. And so I had many discussions with players from the Western League or midgets to go too early, and they would score, 50, 60 goals at midget, and then they go to Western League and would score like 2 or none. So what does it do? What does that do to your confidence and your habit? It's a loss of habit. So yeah, I am all with you, Kerry. I believe that it's important, unless you are exceptional. There is exceptional players
Well,
that
and they usually lead the league in scoring. So I mean,
yeah.
Or they're the top 10 scorer, top 5 defensemen. Those. I'm not talking about those. I'm asking that question from a development of individual skill standpoint.
Yes.
if you have 100 kids and the majority of them are moving up, what percentage will actually gain from moving up versus developing the confidence and the skill, and dominating and creating those good habits.
Exactly.
Versus the ones that, you lose that habit. And that's, it's a big question in the game, and from what I'm hearing overall.
And you see it like one skill is skating. Just working with hundreds of players over the years that move up too quickly, they shorten their stride. Why? Because the game is way quicker where they play and they can't keep up. So they think they have to move their feet quicker. That was the first thing we noticed, when they came to Portland. It's like he skates differently. Or when you move somebody too soon from junior to the NHL or AHL, their decisions become more panicky because they're not ready. It's too fast, too big. So now their body language and their habits are changing. Their perception is changing. So it's
the deception part is tougher when they're in that modem. Like, to help kids with deception, like, when they're in that modem where they're always trying to survive, it probably doesn't build that deception sort of skill that is now becoming more and more valuable. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely, because deception to me is when you feel comfortable, when you've like the way I feel it, it's like you have time. I have time to play with you a little bit. I'm going to look here, I'm going to pass there. That's a state of mind. And like you say beautifully, if I'm constantly surviving, which means I'm in a state of fear, I'm afraid, I have no time to play. Deception is playing. I'm showing you here, but I'm going there. That's play. That's what makes the game fun. And when I'm surviving, like you say, I'm not having any fun. I just don't want to get hit. I don't want to make any mistakes. I want to get it deep, and I want to get off the ice. That's.
I don't want to be minus because I might not get the dress the next night.
There you go. There you go. There you go. So I'm a big proponent, and I have seen in Canada, experienced many sad stories. Very talented midget players going too early, sitting 1 year as a 16-year-old, as a 17-year-old getting injured, and then starting playing 2 years later and becoming a 4th-line player who ends up in junior B.
Thomas, I'd like to interrupt here. Sammy Joe is on, and all I've been thinking here is the female game. And before we go to Dave Barrett, I don't want this to take over the conversation. I want to go to Dave's question, but the idea of acceleration is sort of like 60 girls are playing boys hockey in Calgary. They're not on the 2 elite 13-year-old girls teams. That's a form of perceived acceleration because boys hockey is better. And back in the day when Haley played boys hockey, there was hitting. And to me, it may have helped her development to a degree, but the hitting aspect has definitely deterred it. So I just wanted to get the point in and have Sammy to have some questions related to this topic because, now there's a female pro league. They're trying to get scholarships. They're trying to make the national team. How can they be the best they can be in doing things the right way at the right time? So we'll get into that. Dave, you had your hand up, please, Dave.
I just wanted to build a little bit on the conversation. I had the privilege of coaching Sidney Crosby when he was 14 on my junior A team. He came up as an affiliate player, and he came up in October to play a game, and he was okay, but not great. And then we had him up in January, and he was telling my 20-year-old players where to go on the ice, and they were all listening to him. It was amazing to see in a 3-month period, by him staying back and playing midget hockey instead of playing junior hockey, how much confidence he had and how much his game had grown, so that he was perceived by a bunch of 20-year-olds as a 14-year-old leader, to support holding people back a little bit. And, but he's an exceptional player. My question, though, is if we're going to see potential changes at Hockey Canada in the leadership area, I wonder if there is an opportunity now to perhaps change our practice of accelerating young players up in age groups by taking a more Swedish or Finnish approach to it that, Thomas, you explained. And whether the group here, I don't know Hockey Canada at all, but I'm wondering whether the group here, through your experiences with Hockey Canada, could potentially see that as an outcome of some of the challenges, let's just say, that they've been facing over the last 6 months.
I would not be the guy to ask. I would not know that.
And Dave, you'll be interested to know, I think, Jim Lawson, correct? I'm remembering. I gently twisted his arm, and he has applied to put his name in for the board of Hockey Canada.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, like I can't think there's a better, more qualified guy in a lot of different ways. I mean, he's a hockey guy, but he's not a hockey guy because he hasn't. Yep. He's been out of hockey since his 2 years in the American League, but a really emotionally intelligent guy, a terrific business leader. Like, I hope the powers that be in all the branches actually read his resume and read through it. And like, if you know anybody in Ontario, like the president of the OHA or the Ontario Association will be the one voting. Anyway, he'd be terrific. But that's a little sidebar. Sorry, Wally.
I wanted to interrupt on that point. Exactly, David. Thomas, you may not have been following us, but we've been dealing with what I call the leadership dilemma in terms of trying to change the culture of sport in Canada, but in particularly hockey in Canada, on the male side in the light of the behavioral issues. And I really believe that those young kids, when they get moved up and accelerated at any level, they become entitled and are allowed to do things that are not good for the team, stay out too long, take back penalties, get away with behaviors that the game should be teaching them. So the idea of ethical coaching to win is really the most important thing of all. And yes, we may win these championships, but I think what we're missing here is those kids can't be blamed for their behaviors. So, Thomas, this group is dedicated to the good of the game, and we're spending a lot of time on this topic. So I don't want to go back into it, but we're sort of on top of trying to get the powers to be to institute ethical coaching modules, the art of coaching modules, emotional intelligence modules in the certification program so that coaches can become much more aware of how they're coaching and how it's affecting kids growing up. And the age level thing definitely enters into the picture. Sammy, did you have anything to add or ask relative to what we're saying? I'm just curious.
Well, hi, Thomas. It's so great to see you. I have two of your players, actually, Dominika and Teresa. But I do feel like it's pretty incredible that so many Czech players are over in North America playing And I was just kind of curious if that was sort of a mandate started by you, or if that was why you think that they have done so well internationally, or it's sort of like bringing a kid up too early or too late. You know, it's kind of the same thing in women's hockey if you push them over here. So I was just kind of curious how all that happened.
Well, I don't know. I don't know. So the background of Czech women's hockey is this, that they always grew up with the boys. There is no, minor women's leagues. So they always played with the boys, and they have gone through some incredible hardships that you would probably understand because you grew up similarly in Canada, and the girls in your age group would understand that. And the way they were treated. So they are rough around the edges, very tough, very resilient, very relentless. But most of them, if not all of them, I think all of the girls on the national team when I was coaching, other than one, I think, were in the US colleges or Canadian colleges. And a lot of them went to Canadian American high schools, prep schools, and then went on to play for the colleges. And after that, they joined the Swedish league, Finnish league, German league, and or the US Canadian league. So I think part of the success of those girls is that they were ready for change. They were ready for something new. They have experienced some very good coaching at the college levels and, in international levels. And they wanted something like that at the national team level. They knew that they can do more, that they were showing. And so Carla and hopefully myself a little bit before that were able to support them through that. So the success is not surprising. And one of the reasons why I think they are successful individually is some of those things that I said. They have that timing, they have that deception, they had to be smart playing with the boys because of not getting hit, heads up, being aware. It's one of the greatest players always said, it's not so much of being aware of your own teammates, be aware of your opponents is more important, where your opponents are. And I think the girls had to do that every single day. So some of their game thinking it comes from that, how they grew up. And I was shocked how quickly they were able to understand new concepts, especially the offensive concepts, and apply them in high pressure situations. That just speaks of a high intelligent player who grew up in a very tough conditions.
What I'm seeing so far, Teresa is incredible. I mean, she'll be a top 2 lines for our team for sure. But both girls' willingness to roll with the punches is the wrong way of saying it. But, it's not easy to move to a new city, to a new environment. They actually moved up to Barrie into a home of, I believe, a Czech coach that lives up there. They're coaching one of the local high school teams. And already at our exhibition games, they have the most fans out at the games. So I love that they have sort of totally immersed themselves and integrated themselves and just bring ideas forward. They seem to have a great voice and are not afraid to speak for themselves or to support other teammates. So whatever you did to create this attitude in them, I think it permeates probably the whole Czech system, I would assume. And kudos to you, and thank you for delivering us 2 great hockey players.
Yeah, and certainly, just a little tiny bit from me, but I believe both of them, if you would know their life stories, like all the girls who grew up playing with boys, they have some rough patches behind them, and they came on the other side. And I think those are great leaders for the young girls and the young generations.
I think that you're right that women of certain generation in this country know that story all too well. But I just gave a presentation the other day that it's too bad for all the ones that didn't come out on the other side, because there probably were so many women and girls that wanted to play just like those 2 and had a terrible experience or had parents that told them not to play or a community or whatever. And so I'm hoping that we can get to the point in this country that, you know, anybody says they want to play hockey and we all do everything we can to support them. And it is no longer a gender-based issue. It is simply about bringing joy to that person's life, right? And so, yeah, it's amazing that these two girls have made it, but I think of all those that maybe didn't, and that these two girls stand on their shoulders and really are proof that they made it through, I guess.
Sammy, I'm very happy you brought it up, because it really what flashes in front of my eyes is all those years I coached at the Olympic Oval, thanks to Wally and Tim and so many girls. Not that they had bad experiences, but they had to move on with their lives, and they couldn't play hockey anymore. And they were fantastic hockey players. And we have one online right now. Kim is right there. It's when you were not on the national team, there was no way to make money, so you had to quit. I remember those heartbreaking conversations, and that's just, you know, that's only I cannot continue with my life and with hockey, which I love. And there was thousands of stories I know here in Czech Republic too, that the experiences were just horrible, and they just don't like hockey anymore. They quit. And we had actually many of those on the national team as well. So yeah, it's not always rosy. I'm happy you brought that up, because of course Dominika came out on the other side, but it was also close. It was very close of her not playing hockey anymore. So thank you for that.
Kim, I'm just going to let you chime in, because I don't know how much of what you've heard so far, but most of it was related to Thomas's experience on the male side with the pros, European pros. But we've gotten into the female side of things, and with Sammy involved with the pro hockey, and your knowledge of all of us. Go ahead, Kim, chime in, and what are you thinking? What are you wondering?
Thanks, Wally. I've been here the whole time, but hiding. So hi, Thomas. Great to see you. And Sammy, I haven't officially got to say congrats, but me and my daughters will be there next weekend. We have to come from a game in Etobicoke to make it for puck drop, so we'll rush our way over with our 6 jerseys. But I wanted to just say quickly, Sammy, you mentioned inclusivity. I had a really interesting experience. I'm curious if anyone else has had this experience. I did some ringette clinics this weekend, which was very interesting, teaching physicality. Really fascinating. I learned how to raise the ring. Very proud of myself. It's not that hard. And I got on the ice with the final group, and I typically will say, hey girls, hey ladies. I would say it was U14. And the coach said, well, this is a mixed group. I was like, I'm sorry, I'm not aware of what that means. Like, what does that mean? I assumed it was a girls' sport. It's a mixed group. So we use they, and we say everybody. And I immediately was like, oh, okay, I got to switch. And I thought it would be hard. And I like, it was almost instantaneous how quickly, as a coach, I could just change my language. I was just mindful of it. But it's interesting, and in light of the conversations we have now and the way that hockey is changing, I actually surprised myself how quickly I could adapt in that type of environment. But I hadn't really encountered that where a coach was sort of like, oh yeah, we're just they and everybody. Like I've had teams in the past where there've been players who maybe identified differently. It was almost like the coach was like scared to tell me, or it was sort of a point of contention. And so just the way it was celebrated, I don't even know which player it was, to be honest with you. I have no idea. No clue whatsoever, because it wasn't a team that I was familiar with. But I just wanted to share that insight, because I think, we're all capable of that if that's what it takes. But perhaps we should all be doing something like that anyways. We shouldn't just be assuming that players identify a certain way. But I wanted to piggyback on what Dave said about college hockey. I went and saw Harvard play Dartmouth this weekend at Harvard. So my old team, against Harvard. And it was really interesting how safe the hockey was. It was actually quite boring, like really boring, with the exception of, I would say, the 2 players who play for Harvard who are national team level players. Everyone else played safe, boring, get rid of the puck, it's a hand grenade. I don't want it, you take it. I'd say there was one kid on Dartmouth who really impressed me, who held onto the puck and looked for plays, and I hadn't seen her before. She was quite good. And then the 2 high level players, but they were the only 3 who played the game slowly, and not like they weren't moving slowly, but they were waiting for things to develop. Right? They had that freedom, they had that confidence. They were playing, But we all know this, and we already talked about it today. Like, those players looked so scared to make a mistake that they were never going to get on the ice again. And I was hoping and going to watch. I hadn't watched a college hockey game in person in at least 10 years, like of NCAA Division I. I watch youth sports all the time, and I had a much higher expectation in terms of the creativity that I would see, like infinitely higher than what I saw on the ice there. So it was a little bit disappointing. My former captain's the captain of Harvard. She scored in the first 11 seconds. So that made the whole rest of the game pretty good. But I was really disappointed, because I've seen a lot of those players play minor hockey, and they're the most talented kids on the ice, and they have poise and they have confidence and they slow the game down. And so I'm thinking in terms of the development of top level female players, if they're so scared in college hockey that their college hockey coach is going to sit them and they're not going to get that ice time, are they wasting 2 or 3 years just playing safe, and until their 3rd or 4th year are unable to be creative? So like I said, I was disappointed in that lack of confidence, the lack of fun. It didn't look fun, it looked really boring. And so, like I said, I wonder about that route as a way to develop if your coaches aren't letting you play that way. So just wanted to share.
I'd just like to comment on that, because really it starts in minor hockey, where coaches, Thomas, have gone from yelling and telling in the era of us being coached all the time. And now we want to eliminate the yelling and do some constructive direction and telling. But more importantly is the asking. So I feel when those players go to those teams and they're coached by tellers, directors, this way or the highway, that is stifling to a player's development. So I think this is an important message to give to coaches, to let them play more instead of directing them and overstructuring them. So I just wanted to get that message out there. So anybody else got any questions? I wrote down some early in the when Thomas was talking, but I won't bring them up. But anybody else have any other thoughts on their minds they'd like to hear from Thomas on?
Well, I'm just going to add on to Kim's there. Kim, my experience, I haven't seen a lot of NCAA hockey either the last 10 years, but even 15 years ago when I went to Vermont, I had the same reaction watching the men's team play. Like, safe, dull, boring, never take a risk, never try to do something creative. And I think it stems a lot from, obviously, we've got the wrong mindset, generally speaking, as coaches. Like, winning is important. Obviously, keeping your job is important, but it's more about the coach's ego and keeping their job than it is about the players and helping them develop as players and be the best players they can. There's obviously lines to be drawn in some areas, but I totally agree that it's, we just have this infection in coaching where safe, dumb, uncreative hockey is the way to victory. It's so, changing a little bit now at the highest levels, but I think just far too many coaches are totally wedded to the fact they got to get the W. They don't want one of their third or fourth line players making a play that they feel they shouldn't be making and cost them the game. So it's like dump it out, dump it in, get off. It's too bad, and it's definitely endemic.
Tom, before I get you on, I want to revert back to Kim so that she had her hand up there and sort of want to keep the train of thought going there. Go ahead, Kim.
Yeah, it was so passive. I mean, which is so interesting in female hockey, because in the minor levels of girls hockey, like no one stands around and does nothing. I mean, they overpressure, right? It's just skate, 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 hunt, hunt, hunt. And then you watch college hockey where, you would think the ability to hunt the other player down and create turnovers. And obviously I'm biased. That's the only way I had any success in hockey was by hunting everyone down. But it was just like watching Harvard's D zone coverage in the first period was like, they were literally standing there watching. And it's not that they can't skate and they weren't skilled. Of course, they figured it out in the second and the third, but just that the abject fear that they had was so fascinating to me. But Wally, if you don't mind, I have a question for Thomas. And sorry to step on your toes there, Tom, but how do you, as an organization, the Leafs, are you guys, like, how much are you on the same page in terms of, like you were saying, you asked the skating coach about development drills or, the strength and conditioning. Is there a Maple Leaf way of doing things in that you have a curriculum that is being shared and being used? Or are you allowing people like yourself, Daryl, Danielle, like freedom? Okay, here's what you need to fix, but I don't really care how you fix it. I'm just curious because it seems with 10 people involved, and there's probably more that have their foot, in the door. How much of it is prescribed and how much of it is based on your creativity and expertise?
You have basically answered your question. It's all above that. So there is a common curriculum, and that curriculum is updated basically all the time. Because as much as there's so many bright minds, the game is constantly evolving, and it's evolved by the players. It's evolved not by the coaches. It's evolved by the best players in the world who are constantly finding new ways how to create some time and space, or how to take away some time and space. So it's constantly like, should we add this? Should we teach this? How much have you seen this? That's one way. And then yes, and that is thanks to Haley, who, and I don't think I'm giving any company secrets away, but who believes in the creativity and individuality of every single member of that team, and she supports that. She stands by that, and she wants diversity of thought. She doesn't want us all to be thinking the same way, and she encourages discussion and also disagreement. And I think that's the only way how you can evolve. Like, if you always agree on things, that you have to push forward. So we, like every organization, we have a lot of disagreements, but they are very constructive. Like, that's probably first organization in my life that I feel like every time we have a meeting, I feel enriched. I feel like, wow, like I've learned again something, or I have to think about this, or I feel like I can contribute. At the same time, I have to be like constantly learning all the time. So it's challenging, very challenging, but you have a lot of freedom to express yourself and trust. That's one thing. Another, and maybe it's because of the female leadership, I'm not sure, but I've never felt as trusted as okay, this is your job, this is what you do. We'll support you with everything possible that you want. Like, that's another thing. I don't feel I'm alone. That's the first time, like with Wally, like we work together with Tim, we work but here it's like, I know the amount of people is amazing, and I don't feel like I am the only guy who has to now fix that player or help that player. I have resources that I can afford myself to say, you know what, I don't know what to do. Like, I just don't know. What do you think? So incredible working environment. And, I'm not sure. Maybe it is because, we have such a diversity of thought and we have female leaders. I don't know. Maybe that's the reason. But so again, long answer to your question. I hope I answered the question.
Thomas, I just want to reiterate what you said. I had a short stint in last September in Toronto. I've never felt more trusted and respected in all my life working with different organizations than I did in that short 10-day period. So I think that's a part of the leadership that starts from the top, from Kyle. And I'm sure the presence of the ladies that are there are influencing the organization, because what we're talking about is emotional intelligence, and it's just amazing. So, Tom Malloy, sorry for the delay, Tom. Go ahead.
I just wanted to ask Thomas's opinion. A couple of things that I see all through hockey are what are some techniques you use to get players to look around? Our game the other day, we had 3-on-2s, 2-on-1s, and the players with the puck didn't even know they had anybody with them because their eyes were just straight ahead, challenging that, playing it like a 1-on-1 situation, and look around beforehand to read the play. And the other thing is, I'm hearing all the time, one of the Flames assistant coaches was on and telling why the Flames get at least 40 shots a game. And they do that on purpose because what he said is everybody plays defense so well that on an attack or whatever, when you have the puck, everybody's covered. But when you create a loose puck situation, which is about 30% of the game, then it's all about finding the puck, finding your player. You can lose players, and that's Daryl's philosophy: is create these loose puck situations and out-grit them and win them, and that's a change I'm seeing, right now in the game. So I watch a lot of it. So what's your thoughts there?
Yeah, my thoughts. First of all, the first question, I thought about it a lot because it's a problem. Like we would like, and I don't even talk about leaves. Doesn't matter what coaching situation. Everybody would like to know, or everybody would like to have their players to check before they get to the puck to know where's the forecheck, where's the supporting players. So my drills, when I design those drills, whether it's on retrievals or whether it's on rushes, like you said, a lot of the drills, the player who goes for the puck doesn't know what the situation will be. So I release the puck, I release the first player on the puck, and now it might be my assistant coach has the defensive players and my other coach has the offensive players. So it could be any kind of situation. And obviously, if you don't know what's coming, we are not saying, okay, this is going to be a 2-on-2 drill or 3-on-2 or 3-on-1. They don't know. They just go with the puck or go for the puck on a retrieval. So they now are more forced to read what is behind them. So the shoulder check comes naturally because sometimes it's a 5-on-0, sometimes it's a 2-on-2, sometimes it's 1 against 3. So I'm sending those players out without the first player who will go get the puck without knowing what's going to happen. So that's one way to do it. I also have a really good experience with a skilled game where you play only 3-on-3, but you are only allowed to touch the puck on the forehand. So you cannot touch it with the backhand. So that forces the players to really, because they have to skate around the puck, they have to turn their shoulders, turn their feet, flip their feet, all those skills, and they are only allowed to touch it on the forehand. So that really forces them to look. The other game that we did with Wally a lot is the two-touch bachko, where you just touch the puck, you can only touch the puck twice. So once you touch it, the second touch has to be a pass or shot. So that really forces players to look for their teammates. Also, it forces the players to support the puck. On those one touch, two touch games, it's really good way for me to teach support. But certainly unknown numbers when you are dumping the puck, and you have your assistant coach, and he can be creative, and the other assistant coach can be creative with the offensive team, and different numbers, and they have to read it. And also when you release the pressure. So if I go for the puck and I have somebody right on my back, my behavior will be different than when I have 2 steps, or if I have lots of time. So now we call, I think Kim did a great presentation on the tight turns, on the deception. So now you add to it, read how far the pressure is. Is it right on my back? Or is it a race for loose puck, or is it 2 steps, 3 steps, or do they pass a forecheck like in Finland, where I can swing behind the net and I don't have to worry about it. So all these things, they should be reading without them knowing before you dump the puck in. Same thing on the rush. Send one player on the rush, and sometimes he will have a 3-on-2, sometimes 2-on-2, sometimes 1-on-3. And that will force them to shoulder check when they have the puck. And the other one, I had issues with what you talk about, what Daryl says is true. I think we were, with the Czech national team, offensive zone possession was always like 60-40, 70-30. And we were waiting for the right time to shoot. And I think the teams become very sophisticated, and you actually sometimes pay with counters against you. So if I would be coaching again, I think I would have a mix between Daryl and the offensive zone possession time, where you try to tire the opponent and then you try to change on the puck. But there's lots to be said about Daryl Sutter. I think he's the best coach. Yep. Not to offend anybody.
Yep. Thomas, I related to everything we're talking about. Tom Malloy, we talked about, possessing the puck and changing, and the game that I believe, watching the girls play, this was the national under 18 and the senior team. When they play overtime and scrimmage, you've got a possession change. So I'm suggesting, Tom, that your level, your girls, 3-on-3 whole ice, possession change. They have to think, hang on to the puck, look around. It's a rule, just like 1- and 2-touch Batsko game. It requires support and requires looking for people to get open, and the person away from the puck finding that space at the right time. So those drills are automatic. Now, the other question I have, and it relates to the theory, Daryl had mentioned how he advocates possession changes. And he would do it 5-on-5, I think, if he was going to theoretically coach at any level. And I know Sutter, the first few shifts, they dump it in and they get on it. And some of their lines create turnovers and opportunities to score from forecheck transition. But the whole idea of balancing possession with that grit element of winning the battles in the areas, and the psychology of how you play, pure skill versus grit and compete, I think that's sort of the art of a coach. At what point do you know what you've got and how you could play to get the results you need? So ultimately, to me, the test is the final result in the long run. So Kim, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I think grit and compete is a skill. I actually think it's missing. I think this is why I teach so much physicality. I think it's the key to success in the female game. to be intimidating, right? Not like with your physicality, not in the sense of like playing old school 1980s NHL hockey, but like your ability to impose yourself. Like think about all these battles we see in front of the net in girls hockey where everyone and their mother whacks at the puck 72 times, right? But no one actually touches anyone, right? Or the man of battles in the corner. Like if you go in there and you push the girl off and win the lane and win the hands, and I mean, you don't need to learn how to dangle anybody. There's no need for any dangles in female hockey, in my opinion, if you can possess the puck and build a wall and move your feet and intimidate with physicality. I'm not saying get rid of it. There's certainly a lot of players that do a great job with it, but I think it's a key that unlocks a lot of success in the female game because they just accept the outside. I don't want contact, right? Someone pins them, they don't push back, right? Causes a phenomenal number of injuries. Right? When I teach physicality in every team I work with, we work a lot on physicality. At least 1/3 of the skill time I spend with them is on how do you use your physicality to drive the offensive side of the puck. I teach them how to pin safely and all of that, but how do you use your physicality to angle, to steer, to pin, to get the puck? I mean, and they like it is instantly successful because everyone else just running around like chickens with their head cut off. So I think it is a skill. I don't think it's taught particularly well. And so I agree. I mean, that idea of forechecking and hunting and pinning and getting the puck and not having the other team be set. I mean, the female game has been played that way for a long time, and it's switched over to resemble more of the male game with possession. And now we've gotten away from that. I mean, there's a reason Natalie Spooner's on the national team. Like, I think she's a great player, but she's a bit old school. She's big, she's physical. Sarah Nurse, like, yes, they have elite level skill, but they are scary. I don't want to play against Abby Rock from Team USA. Like, no, thank you. But could we develop more players like that? Is there a need for that in the female game? You can have half a team like that and probably do extremely well instead of just looking cute. So I think it's a skill that needs to be taught and needs to be emphasized, and that can be a huge driver on the female side. Sorry, Wally, you're on mute.
Yep. Okay. I totally agree with you. The thing that it's not disconcerting. We worked on that with Dave King with the national team. He had a progression of teaching puck protection stationary where there was a degree of contact and how to protect that puck, how to drive skate. He had a degree of progressions, working in pairs, 1 versus 1, that to this day deal with everything you're talking about. He taught it with the national team. We spread that out. Those are the little tactical parts of the game that coaches can teach better. And I totally agree with you. What I'm talking about, Thomas, at the end is, okay, who's going to win the cup? Is it going to be the Philadelphia Flyers and the style that they used to play back in the Shero days? Or is it going to be the highly skilled Montreal Canadian team that's going to pass, or the Oiler teams with Gretzky? And I think the test is going, at the NHL level is going to be the final result you want to accomplish. Now, developmentally, I think that minor hockey is doing better things and more things, but we do want to influence those coaches as much as anybody with our group to make the game a lot better, a lot safer, a lot more fun. Anybody else? Anything else to add?
Wally, I just threw something in the chat there of a concussion clinic I ran this weekend with our coaches, concussion prevention, and it was all awareness drills and all physicality drills. So like you said, Dave King, like the one-on-one, put your butt on their hands, push them off of you, that kind of puck control, puck protect, mixed with a bit of the stuff Tom was talking about earlier. Obviously Thomas's ideas are amazing, and I'm teaching it, I guess, more in like a pure, like how to scan, how to be more aware. versus maybe the decisions you would make once you figure out it's a 1-on-3. But I just thought I'd share it in the chat for everyone. And for those of you that use Coach Them, if you want me to send it to you, there's videos embedded in for all the drills, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, so if anyone wants that version of it, I'm happy to share it as well. But that would be those little, I use those a lot as like drills between the drills. You know, just like insert one of those in between every single drill you run throughout the practice for 2 minutes, and you know, you get lots of reps in. So I just wanted to share that because we've kind of been talking around that, and you know, the coaches seemed really, really receptive to it, and hopefully they use it to decrease injury, but also mostly to increase performance, right? I mean, that's really the way that I look at those drills, but it's going to keep the players safer too.
Tom had his hand up, or I'm not sure. Just forgot to put it down.
Go ahead, Tom. Tom Malloy?
Yeah, sorry, I never took it down. I just listening to the comments and thinking how we could adapt it at our practices.
Okay. I've got I don't know if Jordan is in his office at his school or out supervising a class or in a gym, but Jordan, are you on still?
Dave has his hand up too, Wally.
Okay. Well, we'll let Dave question and then we'll come back to Jordan. Go ahead, Dave.
So Tom, when I teach online, that's called a legacy hand when you leave it up too long like that. You forgot to put it down. I just like to link a couple things here. I think what Kim's talking about, and my 2 years coaching women's hockey I was gobsmacked at how none of them knew how to protect the puck, like I was taught as a hockey player. And I think when you learn how to use your body offensively, I think that links to our previous conversation about poise and hanging on the puck longer, because once you understand how to shield the puck from the checkers, you automatically start to not fear having the puck stripped from you as much. And it creates the ability to have your head on a swivel and look for more opportunities to make plays, because you're not panicking that somebody's going to strip the puck from you. And I just found once we started to instill in our female players that ability to use their bodies to create time to think when they had the puck, it just automatically built into better decision making because they were creating time and space. Not more space, I should say, just time. And I love the fact that Kim teaches that in the female game. I think that's definitely lacking.
Dave, thank you. And Thomas, I'm throwing out another drill you had brought up, like for the hockey IQ, the vision, thinking, support, the botch-go game. One thing on the physicality, on the boys' side years ago, when they eliminated body checking at Pee Wee, it was a real problem when kids went up to Bantam boys and there was hitting involved. So having mentored teams in the AA and AAA level in the boys' side, I had the team play 3-on-3 cross-ice scrimmage where they had to finish the check at practice. Cross-ice 3-on-3. And they could hit each other, and it was sort of it was an enjoyable thing. They were running each other. And one time I had a very aggressive player in the North Star organization that he finished the check too hard once, and the dad who happened to be at the practice was on my case about the safety issue. So that's the line I sort of had to face, where I thought it really helped when they went to play another game against another team the next time. They were far more assertive in their play, so it did work. Now, Jordan, I'm just curious about your thoughts. Any questions in terms of what you've heard? Jordan and I have worked together for years, Thomas, in female hockey, and primarily the Bantam and the midget ages, and he's right now coaching a midget AA team. So Jordan, go ahead.
Thanks, Wally. as always, there's lots to unpack whenever you're hearing people like Thomas share their story. And I was away for a little bit teaching grade 6 volleyball, so I missed a part of it that I'll be listening to later. But as far as the physicality thing, I'd just lean into that one a little bit. No pun intended. In that we really do work hard on trying to get players to play a little more physical, use their bodies well, but it's taken on a different lens this last season and this season in looking at more of what Daryl Belfry calls the surf angle, and making sure that you're getting hips in front of hips and going through hands to separate player from the puck. And it's not as much angle to contact the pin in many facets of it as it is angle to contact to go through hands, so that you can have toe caps pointing the right direction and make sure that you're going to be the team to come up with the puck. And that's been a really interesting shift, rather than seeing, especially when you're denying zone exits, with players going down the wall, or the D going down the wall and stacking up the wall to try and pinch that way, rather that they're surfing those players off. And yeah, the puck may leave the zone at times, but probably high 90% of the time we're coming up with the puck, and very few times is it turning into an odd person rush the other way when they're using the surf rather than trying to just pinch the wall. So that physical play is something that even the other day when we had some U13s out, we were working with them on it. The understanding of using your body to protect the puck when you have it, and using your body to separate the puck from the other player when they have it. And so that's a key piece. And unfortunately, we have seen the other side of it where physical play goes awry. And we were playing a game on Thursday, and we had a player that she was going to retrieve a puck on the wall and turned her back in an area where probably shouldn't have, and the other player finished her, and finished her to the extent that she ended up getting an ambulance ride to the Children's Hospital to be checked out. Fortunately, nothing is broken. She's extremely whiplashed and sore from it, but it's that piece too, that we have to teach it in the right way so that we can teach players how to be safe as well. But there are times where contact is not necessary.
Thanks, Jordan. Now, Thomas, I wrote down a couple questions while you were talking right at the beginning of the session. And I thought back to the Florida experience where you invited me to relax and watch you work. And so I was sort of the eye in the sky watching how you worked. The coaches would pop into the room to talk to you and I as we were dressing up. And I just saw the influence factor of your presence and what you were doing working. Now, over the years, in your experience, now it's not like you're the head coach and you're responsible. You're in that role of being an influencer and how to do that. So what do you feel has worked best for you? And if you can be specific in terms of something being appreciated, bought into, taken forward, I'll throw that at you first before I ask you, what are some examples maybe that didn't and you had to change? Go ahead, Thomas. You're a speaker, I think, Tom.
Yeah. So the question was about, as an influencer, what works and what doesn't. There is no one thing I went away from is get away from prescriptions, get away from how to do this. So I don't have a prescription. I don't have a manual what works, what doesn't, because I feel every situation is different. Every player is different. Every circumstance is different. The context of the situation is different. So what works in one situation doesn't necessarily work in another situation. So what does work is my openness and presence of mind and not wanting to be right. Because I want to speak just for myself, a lot of time I want to be right. And when I want to be right, that's only one way to do it. So I am immediately closing off many different solutions to the problem when I want to be right. So if I relinquish the need to be right, I open myself to different opportunities, possibilities that might come through different people like yourselves, like a group like this, my coaching staff, my coaching mates, and also mainly through intuition and ideas that come from a different source, higher source, but I have to be open to it. And openness comes from relinquishing the need to be right. And that is very difficult for me. And so my prayer or my meditation or my attitude adjustment every morning is, please help me do the right thing and not necessarily what I believe is the right thing. So that's what works, because there is no, like I said, there's no prescription. Like if I would be working with Kim, it certainly would be different than if I would be working with my player in Sweden or my different player in Toronto. The Czech national team was a completely different experience than Toronto and then the Olympic Oval. And so I don't have the answers, never do, but there's other people that have, or there is the ultimate intelligence or ultimate intuition that knows all the answers. And I just have to make sure I'm connected to that. Not every day I'm successful at, but when I'm connected, then the right answers, the right ideas, the right drills, the right one word that I need to say. Sometimes it's not to say anything. I was at the development camp and I was sometimes surprised. I didn't speak the whole day. I didn't say anything. And some days I was talking a lot and I was taking charge and I was more aggressive, more demanding. And some days I wouldn't say anything. And I hope it was through guidance, not through Tomas Pacina.
I relate to this to the player and to any staff that works together. And I call it a mathematical formula, a different formula. 1 and 1 equals 2. We all know that's pretty simple, pretty right. But the reality of what you're saying with teamwork on the ice and teamwork as a staff is 1 and 1 equals 3. The ability to learn from one another and adapt new ideas and be open to that. I think that's what our group is really all about. And we've got, time to, it's not waste, but time to invest in continuous learning. So I really just appreciate everything that you've been able to communicate today, Thomas. I'm thankful for having the opportunity to work with you and that you came to Canada and you got immersed in all kinds of experiences in Canada, and then to go full circle and return home and working in the culture. And Carrie's put up the sign. What is that, Carrie? What team? Is your speaker, Carrie? Carrie, your speaker.
Yeah. One of the greatest experiences I had, Thomas, was in Mariansky Lasnia in the Czech Republic. And I'm sure you know that place. It was kind of like a spa town, but it was a hockey haven. And in '96, we took a lunch bucket group of kids from out of the rural area of Calgary, and we went over to the Grotto Cup. And Thomas, it was one of the the most enlightening coaching experiences of my life. But just a beautiful place, number one, and beautiful people. And we ended up winning the tournament, but it was. I just wanted to show you that because I looked up on my wall and it was there, and I went, the Czech Republic, to me, I got to get back there. It just seemed like a fantastic place.
Wally, it's interesting because my best friend Jiří and I started a hockey school in Mariánské Lázně, same place in '95. And Wally was one of the first participants as a guest coach or head coach. So that town is very close to my heart as well.
Well, this was 96, so it was right, and I can remember the tournament like it was yesterday. And it was, but I thought the hockey entity and the learning of, like different types of coaching and what was going on there was one of my first experiences with, kind of the European hockey and the Czech Republic specific. So I just I thought I'd bring that up in 1996, but learning's always good. And I'll tell you, I learned an awful lot that tournament, but I also, it was fun. And that was a good part of my experiences with the Czech Republic. So
They have good beer there too, Brack.
Huh?
They have good beer there too.
Oh, well, that was part of the fun. There's no doubt about that.
Thomas, what year, do you recall what year I came and Dennis Sikuski came and his son to help at your camp? That was
It
before.
Probably 97 or 98.
Good. And do you remember what my focus was and the reason you brought me and the role I played?
Team building.
Yeah. Team building.
Row the boat, gently down the stream.
And I got to do some ice times, and I dealt with physicality. And I remember that it was sort of like, okay, what can I do? The Czech coaches here and the European players here that we do in Canada. And I did spend a lot of time at that. I remember it like it was yesterday. And after that, Thomas, after the 2002 Olympics, you were able to arrange an exchange. And you and I went over to the Czech Republic, spent 10 days in Pilsen with a professional team, looking at everything they did at every level, from the youth to the pro teams. And in exchange for that, Yuri Kralik came over and delivered a scoring / goaltending clinic. And I mean, those things are still to this day, my God, we've got to get those things to the coaches because they are the one thing European coaches to do that Yuri did, Bukac did, Walston did. They had unique teaching methodologies, progressive of tactical thinking application to perform on the ice that I had never seen before. And, having experienced it and applied it all my life and seeing the value in it, it frustrates me as an influencer because when I watch coaches coach and the players can't execute a 2-on-1 like Yuri Kralik taught with shoot for a rebound, number 1, fake a shot pass, number 2, fake a pass shot, number 3, and then Royal Road, and then double Royal Road deliberately to play poker with the goalie. Man. And then a continuous 2-on-1, one end only. Like, to this day, teams can't execute offensive 2-on-1s on a drive, let alone a drive trail. But I appreciate that. And I remember coming after the Olympics, Thomas, and meeting your dad, having coffee on the cobblestone outside of a building. And I also remember, I don't know if you got a parking ticket or something, but And I do remember, was it A&W? Where
Oh
we,
no, it was McDonald's.
McDonald's. And the beautiful ladies that were there, every time Thomas and I see somebody like we saw there, we just say Czech Republic. It was just eye-opening for me. So I'm just wondering if anybody else has anything to ask or say, but it's so good to have Thomas, his experience in life, and now to be back in the Czech Republic and now working for a Canadian team, Canada's English-speaking team, with a group of people that we've worked together with over many years. Boy, what a way to go out. It's just tremendous. So all the thanks, Thomas. I don't know what you might have to add, say, encapsulate any advice to mentors, which we are trying to influence Hockey Canada on the ethical side of coaching, influence coaching on the technical side and the ethical side. So any advice you could give mentors and coaches, educators, developers, or even parents who have experience like Carrie in the stands to be better influencers?
Certainly no advice. I have no advice, but my experience is when I'm judging, I don't know enough of the context. I have to ask more questions. If I ask enough questions, I will stop judging. I am quick to judge because I just don't know enough. And so in my experience, where my path is leading me is to, okay, if I'm judging somehow that situation, I don't understand enough. I have to ask more questions. I have to figure out the whole context of the situation so that I am less judgmental. That is my path. And that's not an advice. That's where I just arrived because I've been wrong so many times. I've been wrong so many times about so many situations that I am way slower into judgment now, and I just want to know more about the situation, about the person, about the context. And the context is very large. It's sometimes so big to truly understand the player or the team context, why those situations are happening, why is he having these issues. And usually it has nothing to do with skill. Skill is like the last thing, last resource of expression, but there's underlying issues, and I just have not asked enough questions. I have not investigated, researched enough, and therefore I am judging. And so that is my experience. I would certainly do a lot of things differently in my life with, as we all would do. But that would be one thing I would share. Not really, it's not an advice, but I would share it.
Okay. Thomas, what have you learned from working with Darryl Belfry?
Oh, that's a great question. That if you want to be the best in something, you have to pay a tremendous price. There's a price to everything. And there's no coincidence. There's no, it's a cliche, but there is no substitute for hard work. Darryl just works so hard. He just knows so much about the game and has seen so much. And not that you and I and all of us would not work hard at it. He just has seen so many thousands and thousands and thousands of hours of tape that he investigates and researches so meticulously. And he has seen those situations over and over again. And he's just has so much experience and knowledge through that. And then He is not afraid to go the other way. If everybody goes right, he goes left. Sometimes he's right, sometimes he's not, but that fact that he goes left when everybody goes right puts him into some space where nobody really goes. And so he researches things that nobody looks at. He's just willing to look at things differently. I mean, that's just very few. I mean, I could speak about Daryl Belfry for hours, really. So yeah, tremendous mind, like tremendous hockey mind, but through hard work. Through hard work. There's no days off for Daryl Belfry.
He's very busy, as you are. And I'm so thankful. I was sleeping in the morning and woke up about 7 o'clock, 7:30. And I looked at my iPhone and I checked the temperature, but then I have Prague's temperature and I saw the time zone. So while I was in bed laying down, I called and I've got Thomas's check number and bingo. And I put the heat on him to join this session. And I'm so thankful, Thomas, that you're able to come on. And we just love to have you on again anytime. And I'd love to have you and Daryl come on and share your relationship and working relationship before Toronto, in the Czech Republic, and how the two of you work together to change hockey for the better. And now you're doing it together, working in an organization. So down the road, that's in sort of my that's in my lunch bucket to try to make sure we pull that one off. I've wanted to get Dave King on with Daryl, but haven't been able to do that. So we'll see what we can do moving forward. I'd like to thank Thomas and everybody else for joining and being able to chime in. And as usual, everybody had questions that led to stimulated thought. Thank you very much for joining. And Thomas, you have a good evening and sleep over there. We're all going to have good days here in North America.
Thank you, guys. So
Okay.
happy to see you all.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Thomas.
Thank you. Thank you.
So long, everybody. Bye-bye.